Hello, team players. We are once again teaming up with 20-sided adventures all October long to bring you the Monster Mash. Today we're talking about the Poppet ancestry. So they start out with small size and have 6 ancestry hit points, in addition to a basic speed of 25 feet. For ability boost, they have Constitution and Charisma with a flaw in Dexterity. Languages, they have Common plus languages equal to their intelligence modifier as normal. They also have the Constructed ability, which means they get a bonus on saving throws against death effects, diseases, poisons, and any effect that gives them the drained, paralyzed, or sticking conditions, because obviously they're puppets. So they're made of metal or wood or something like that. They are, however, living creatures, so they're healed normally. They also have dark vision and the flammable ability, which means they do have a weakness to fire equal to 1/3 your level. So you got to be careful around that. For heritages, we're going to start with the Ghost Poppet, which has resistance to negative damage equal to half your level. This one is situational at best. You're probably never going to use this, but it is kind of useful. Then we have the Stuffed Poppet. So you don't take fall damage no matter how far you fall, which can be extremely useful if you can fly through a spell or something like that. Then we have the Toy Poppets. You are tiny instead of small. You don't automatically gain cover from larger creatures, but you can use them to take cover. You can also purchase weapons for your size, but they have a reach of 0, which means you have to enter a creature's space in order to attack it. Unless, of course, you happen to have a reach weapon. This is actually a pretty good heritage for rogues because you can hide and then spring out and do your sneak attack. Moving on, we have the wind-up poppet. You don't need food or water to survive, provided you wind yourself up a few times per day. You still need to breathe as well as sleep, though. This is really more of a role play heritage. It won't come up in most campaigns. Then we have the Wishborn Poppet. Successes become critical successes and saving throws against emotion effects, which emotion effects are insanely common, especially fear effects. So you will use this a lot. Probably the best heritage here by far. And finally, we have the Tsukigami Poppet. You choose one lore skill associated with the kind of tool you were. For example, if you're a knife or a spoon, you might choose cooking lore. You become trained in that skill, and you gain a bonus to aid in that skill. In addition, if you take the helpful Poppet feat, which I'll cover later in this video, the bonus from that increases. But you do have different weaknesses depending on what you were. If you're made of wood, you're weak to fire. If you're made of metal, you're weak to electricity. If you're ceramic, you're weak to coal. Overall, pretty good heritage here. I don't think it's as good as the Wishborn Poppet, but it's good. Moving on to first level feats, we have Harmless Doll. You are trained in deception and can impersonate an inanimate doll. This allows you to hide from creatures that don't realize you're alive, as long as you're in a location where a toy of your size wouldn't be out of place. They still see you, but they think you are a toy. After being fooled once, they realize you're alive, and this feat no longer works on them. This one is fantastic for rogues. It's a great way to hide, but you can really only use this once per creature, so you may need another way to get your sneak attack. And you can really only use this at the beginning of combat. Moving on to Helpful Poppet, which I mentioned earlier. You gain a bonus on aid checks, and don't give a penalty if you critically fail. I think one of the main reasons that aid isn't used much is because you might give your ally a penalty to what they're trying to do. But with this, you don't have to worry about that. And you get easier aid checks as well. Fantastic feat. Highly recommended. With the quadruped feat, you have 4 legs instead of 2. This increases your speed to 30 feet. But you can only take this feat at first level, and you can't retrain it in any way, whether into it or out of it. This can be good if you need more speed, especially if you're a spellcaster. I highly recommend this for them. With shiny button eyes, you gain the Canny Acumen General, but you must choose Perception. You also get a bonus on perception checks against visual illusions. The Canny Acumen General feat is better for saving throws, and you can only take it once, even if you get it through this feat. Although this doesn't allow any character to take my favorite archetype of all time, the Overwatch. So if you're interested in that archetype, you might take this feat. Otherwise, take something else. With Watch Out, when you succeed at a Fortitude save against poison, you reduce the stage by more than normal. If you critically succeed, you reduce it even more. Poison is not that common, and a lot of the time, you're only going to get stage 1 anyway. But this can be really good against virulent poisons, but I still don't recommend this feat because you're not going to use it much. Virulent poison are even less common. Moving on, we have Made for Combat. This requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage. You gain unarmed attacks based on your body, but you can only take this feat at first level, and you can't retrain into or out of it. These are all pretty good unarmed attacks, but the wrap especially is very good because you can grapple people with it. And you get an item bonus from your hand wraps of Mighty Blows if you do so, which makes this a very good feat for monks and anyone else who wants to use unarmed attacks. Sudden Terror also requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage. For one action, you can demoralize a creature and gain the effects of Intimidating Glare. So it has the visual trait, and you don't have to worry about creatures not understanding you. And if you're hidden when you use this feat, you get a bonus on the check. And if you succeed, you get Frightened 2 instead of Frightened 1. Then, all creatures that witness you using this feat are immune for 24 hours. This is a fantastic feat. Frightened is one of the best conditions you can put on an enemy. Honestly, I wish you didn't have to be a certain heritage to take this. It'd be a lot better if it was any heritage. And finally, for level 1, we have Minuscule Mentee. You gain a Poppet Familiar. This can be very good if you're not a spellcaster or an alchemist. Those guys can take feats to gain familiars. They don't need this feat. And familiars can help out a ton. I'm not going to go over them here, but I did do a video on them a while ago. It might be time to redo that one. I'm not sure. Let me know. And now we come to level 5 feats, starting with Cunning Tinker. You can cast Mending as an innate spell once per day, and the spell is heightened as you level. And you can use this spell on yourself even though you are alive and not an object. This can be very good for healing yourself if you don't have a healer in the party. But even if you do, you can use this on objects outside of combat. For example, maybe there's a door that's broken that needs to be fixed so you can go through it. Fantastic feat. Histrionic Injury is not that good of a feat. Once per hour, when a creature damages you with a melee strike, you can force them to make a will save against your class or spell DC, whichever is higher. If they fail, they become Stupefied 1, and Stupefied 2 on a crit fail. If they're melee attacking you, they're probably a martial type character or monster, so Stupefied won't hurt them very much. This can be good against dragons, since they're kind of martial and spellcaster, but otherwise, you're more than likely going to want to take something else here. Nothing But Fluff requires the Stuffed Poppet heritage. You gain resistance to precision damage, which precision damage isn't very common at all. If you're running into a lot of enemy rogues and investigators, take this. Otherwise, take something else. Sealed Poppet is a very important feat. It allows you to ignore the flammable ability, meaning no more weakness to fire. But you can't take this feat if you're a Stuffed Poppet. Every Poppet that can take this should take this. Unless, of course, you're a Tsukigami Poppet that isn't weak to fire, but we'll talk about that a bit later in this video. Fire damage is extremely common in Pathfinder 2e, so being weak to it is not good. Definitely want to get rid of that. Spark of Independence is another great feat. You can give a minion the Quicken condition for 1 round, but after that they're immune for 10 minutes. They can use the extra action to step, stride, or strike. This is a fantastic feat for any spellcaster that wants to summon creatures or any character that has something like an animal companion or something similar. It basically gives your minion 3 actions for a round. I highly recommend this feat. Swimming Poppet gives your character a swim speed, which isn't useful. You won't use this much at all except in very specific campaigns. There are APs where this would be useful, but otherwise take something else. Insulated Poppet requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage, and you must have a metal or ceramic body. You get to ignore your weakness to electricity or cold. This can be very good. Especially cold damage is pretty darn common. So getting rid of your weaknesses is always good. If you're this type of Poppet, take this. Absolutely. And finally, for level 5, we have No Hands, No Problem. You can perform simple interact actions with a reach of 10 feet. You can also cast Telekinetic Hand as an innate spell at will. However, the Telekinetic Hand is tethered to your body, via snaking illusory arm, so it doesn't go as far as the normal telekinetic hands. But this can be really useful outside of combat, especially if you're a Poppet that doesn't have hands, such as a Tsukigami Poppet. Now we come to level 9 feats, starting with scaling Poppets, which gives you a climb speed. Climb is a lot more useful than swim is, so you would use this more. But it might be situational depending on what type of character you're playing. Wheedle and Jig allows you to cast Enthrall as an innate spell, which is fantastic out of combat. But in combat, you're not going to use this much. Fascinated is just not that good of a condition in combat. Solidarity requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage. Once per 10 minutes, you can touch an item of 2 bulk or less and restore its hit points. However, you take damage equal to the amount of hit points gained, and you can't take any effects that would increase or decrease the hit points gained or lost in this way. And it ignores temporary hit points. And obviously you can't use it on an object that's been completely destroyed. If you have the minuscule Mentee feat, you can use this on your familiar. This can be really good if you need to repair something quickly, but most of the time you're not going to need to. You're better off just trying to repair the item with either the mending spell from that earlier feat or just repairing it as normal, so you don't take hit point damage. I do not recommend this one, especially since it requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage to even take. Now we can move on to level 13 feats, starting with Impossible Gossip. You can cast Stone Tell once per day as an innate spell. However, instead of talking to stone objects, you talk to toy statues or other inanimate objects crafted to mimic a creature's appearance, regardless of their composition. This can be good if you're in a city or any place where these type of things are common. They can definitely give you some good information if you talk to them. Fantastic out of combat feat. You can use Reanimating Spark once per day. If you have the dying condition and are about to make a recovery check, you are restored to 1 hit point, lose the dying and unconscious conditions, and can act normally. You still gain the wounded condition as normal though. It is incredible that this is level 13. You normally have to wait until level 17 for a feat like this from your ancestry. It's a fantastic survivability option and I highly recommend. With Squirm Free, as a reaction, if a creature grabs, immobilizes, or restrains you, you can attempt to escape from it, which is another fantastic feat. Since you're doing it as a reaction, you won't have to worry about the multiple attack penalty. It is a fantastic option for spellcasters who really don't want to get grappled at all. And finally, for level 13, we have Awaken the Obake, which requires the Tsukigami Poppet heritage. You can cast Fear as an innate spell, but the spell originates from an object within 30 feet of you instead of you. If the target becomes fleeing from the spell, they're fleeing from the object and not you. Fear is such a good spell. And since they're fleeing from the object and not you, they may have to move past you or another party member that has reactive strike. So you may be able to hit them as they're running past you. For level 17 feats, we're going to start with Restitch, which allows you to cast Regenerate as an innate spell, which is a fantastic healing option. Regenerate is a ridiculous spell, and you don't even have to cast it on yourself. You can cast it on your allies, making this even better. And the last feat I'm going to cover in this video is Soaring Poppet. You gain a fly speed of 15 feet, and a fly speed is always useful. You can use it to stay away from melee attackers if you're ranged, like a spellcaster, or you can use it to attack flying enemies if you're melee, like a fighter or a barbarian. This can also be extremely useful outside of combat as well. It's going to be very hard to choose between these two, but it depends on the character you're playing more than likely. Let me know what you think in the Poppet, either here or on my Discord server. It really is the best way to support the channel besides subscribing. And of course, stay tuned for more Monster Mash videos, including my killer doll build coming soon, either here or on 20-Sided Adventures channel. If you want my videos early, you can check out my Patreon page. All those links are in the description below. You can also check out this other Monster Mash video on screen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.